Canadian and Vancouver native and greatly respected record producer, mixer, and music engineer Mike Fraser is virtually sitting down with me this afternoon due to the unfortunate circumstances our world is in today. Mike comes on my show today with a wealth of knowledge, insight, and firsthand experience in the music industry, and we're going to chat all about it. Mike, welcome to the Jigme Kelsang Show.
Yeah, thanks a lot. Yeah, great. Happy to be here.
I mean, it's a pleasure to have you. I mean, I think that these times have been so hard on everybody, and for the music industry, I know it may have been a big impact as well because everyone's doing everything virtually and having everything just change all of a sudden, and we don't know what to expect in the future. So I really appreciate you taking the time to speak with me today. I mean,
Yeah, man.
How have you been holding up?
Well, this pandemic's really impacted the world, especially the entertainment industry. All the movies and all that stuff seem to have kind of got it together and they're able to keep sort of filming. But the music has been really tough in the, especially in the studio, with bands not able to do full tours or anything, they're not able to generate money. And without that money, they don't have money to spend in the studio. So most of my projects have all been kind of put on hold until things can open up again. And bands have to be playing to full venues, half venues, nobody's making any money, So, those concerts that are at half or limited things are for the fans and just trying to keep things going, but nobody's making any money. So, it's been really tough.
Certainly, and I mean that's expected. I mean, due to the circumstances that everyone's been under these past few years, and we're all looking forward to get out of this safely and as best as we possibly can. But at this point, nothing is for guaranteed at this point because of everything that just keeps happening and canceled shows, canceled concerts. Everything's been pushed back a lot, and now you got to rise to the challenge. And somehow I hope that the music industry is finding different ways to pivot and trying to find alternative ways to get music to people and still trying to raise the spirits of people. I mean, I think that's the goal, isn't it?
Well, it is, but you have to understand we're in the music industry, the music business. So, it's all well and good to do streaming concerts and all that kind of stuff. It's great for the fans, but nobody's making money. A fan's not going to plop down $20 to watch a stream. You know what I mean? So there has to be a money influx, and, everybody loves streaming and that's great. But, with streaming, the bands only get a fraction of what money's being swapped, so they can't make a living off streaming. It's actually hard record sales, CDs or even downloads from Apple and the other download sites. There's got to be an exchange of money. Buy a band's t-shirts, merchandise, all that helps. Streaming is great to get your music out there, but it's not generating any money, so it's just making it really tough on everybody, from the musicians on up. Most musicians aren't those, multi-million-dollar rock stars. Most of them are struggling, self-employed people.
I mean, yeah, I mean, I guess that, the marketing side of everything also has an impact as well. Or if not the greatest impact because of everything going on right now. And, sales are tougher than ever before we're seeing, and how everything's unfolding, and artists and bands trying to figure out ways that they can even, get virtual concerts going, and making it fun at home for people. But again, it's not the same. I mean, being in person and enjoying that live music and enjoying those times where it's supposed to be memorable. Like, I mean, how has that been? Is that an accurate picture of how the music industry right now is dealing with? And sort of how are they trying to find different ways to pivot and trying to find ways to get music back into people?
Well, to be honest, most bands that I know are all just kind of trying to survive. A lot of them have had to go out and get full-time jobs just to pay the rent and all that stuff. So really, everybody's kind of holding their breath, waiting for things to open up again. And I think we have to be really careful and not open it up too soon, or you get the variances going again, and the new wave comes in, and I think we just got to hunker down. I really personally believe that we're almost at the end of this. With this Omicron, seems to be a lot weaker strain of this virus. A lot of people are vaccinated now, so if you do get sick, which is likely because it's very contagious, it's not going to kill you or make you deathly sick. So that's what's going to create this herd immunity. And I think we're getting to the tail end of it. I would bet in probably 4 to 6 months, hopefully, we'll be kind of back to more normal. And how great is that going to be to go into a nice, hot, sweaty club and jump into the mosh pit with everybody right there with you, and watching your favorite band is going to be such an awesome moment.
Yeah, and I mean, let's bring it back to the point of what inspired or ignited your passion for music, because I know that as a producer and as a mixer and engineer, you have different passions that you have. So sort of, can you explain what sort of got you into the music industry and the music realm?
Well, I quit school quite young, and I went into business with my dad, running logging equipment and driving trucks and stuff. And here in Vancouver in the winter, we don't get a lot of snow, but it's pretty muddy. So we'd had to shut down for a couple months every winter, and I got bored of sitting around watching soap operas. When I was in school, I was in a little garage band, and I learned there that I wasn't good enough at guitar to make a living at it. So, didn't do that. So when I decided to, get out of the trucking industry, I thought, well, what do I like doing? I love doing music. I can't play guitar good enough. Oh, I know. Maybe I'll get a job at a studio. So I phoned a few places around in Vancouver here, and got a job at a studio as a janitor. They didn't have any other work available, but they had said, oh, we got a janitor spot available. So I took that just to get my foot in the door, and I guess just climbed up the ladder from there. I mean, I loved it. I worked 20, 22-hour days, had a sleeping bag at the studio. I lived there for about a year and a half, my sleeping bag. I was hooked. So that was the beginning of it.
I mean, certainly, and I think it's interesting to know the fact that, like, those little jobs and how they can really impact your steps to get into a big, position like you are in right now.
Yeah.
I mean, out of those jobs that you've had, and getting to the point of becoming that producer, mixer, engineer,
Mhm.
how did you know that you wanted to do that in the first place? Because I know that there may have been a lot of things that have come your way, challenges and whatnot. And can you explain more on how did you know that you wanted to become a producer?
Well, when I was, there wasn't very many jobs open to me because I quit school. I didn't have a degree in anything. So, sort of jobs were limited. And so I had a really long talk with myself and just, what do I want to do? What do I like doing? And is there something that I like doing that I could get paid at? And I thought, well, hey, let's give this music thing a try. And, that's really what drove me. And I was lucky enough, I was about 18 at that point. I was lucky enough at 18 to discover what I wanted to do in life. I know for a lot of people, and my children included, that they get out of school and they still don't know what they want to do. Oh, well, maybe I'll try this. Maybe, it's really hard to just come up with something that you love doing, but you can get paid at doing it. So, I've been very lucky.
I mean, yeah, I mean, it is. I mean, how do I put it? I mean, it is lucky, I would say, because you don't get to see these types of positions or
Yeah.
find these things nowadays. But I mean, it's a hard thing to do, because it takes a lot of um, courage. It takes a lot of mindset and positive attitude to keep your foot forward, and try to maintain a good healthy attitude every day and come in and love what you're doing.
That's
So
right.
how does,
Yeah.
and how does that sort of like, um, I mean, how does that positive attitude or healthy attitude really help build someone's reputation in terms of the music industry?
Well, if you're doing something that you love doing, when you get up in the morning, you're not getting up in the morning to go to work, you're getting up to do something you love. So right there, you've got a positive attitude. I know so many people that, get up and go to work at the, whatever job they're doing, and it's just for money that they're working. So Monday morning they wake up, oh, I hate Monday. Oh, I hate going to work. Oh, thank God it's Friday. I got the weekend off. I've never had that, because every morning I wake up, so, oh, I get to go to work today. Oh, I get to do this. I get to, make music. So I think, with a lot of soul searching, you could find yourself what your passions or what you want to do. If you're really passionate about taking apart DNA strands, then go for it, because it's not going to be work. There's going to be, work is work, and there's going to be days you're like, oh, this is a tough day. But if you're doing something you love doing, doesn't matter what it is, flower arranging or whatever, if you love doing it and love that aspect of it, it's not going to be work. So then the positivity is always there, right? From when you wake up in the morning, you're always positive, because it's like, I get to go to work and do this. So I think the first step is just really having an honest thought and talk to yourself, and what are your passions. Just, don't think of it as like, oh, I'm going to get a cool job. Well, if you don't love doing that cool job, maybe it's a cool job being an actor, but that's a tough job too. So, it's got to be something you love doing and is within your scope of your abilities and passions. And then that just all builds a whole positive mindset. And then it's not work anymore. You're going to make money doing something you love doing.
I mean, absolutely. And you talked about, the tough days and the tough moments of
Mhm.
being an artist or being an engineer or being a producer or a mixer. And so with that being said, the question I want to pose here is, what has been the most difficult task of being in the industry, especially in the role you're in right now? And also, what has been the most fun part and enjoyable part of the job as well?
Yeah. Well, the tough thing about this job is that it is really it is hard work. It's long hours. An average day is probably 14 hours. A lot of our long days can be, up to 22 hours. There was one session we did 6 days straight, no sleep. We didn't even leave the studio, just coffee and cigarettes, and 6 days went by, so it could be long hours. That's tough. So then that becomes really tough on relationships, friends, marriages, because you're married to the job. That's all you do. When we're working a lot, we don't get to go out and see live bands very much. We're at the studio all the time. So, we don't get to see the latest movies. I think Star Wars back in the day had been out for 2 years before I even saw it, because, you don't have a night off to go to the movies or anything. So that's the hard part about the job. It's in a way quite a lonely job. It's just you and a couple people in the studio for 7 days a week, 16 hours a day. So that's tough. The fun side of it is you get to create. You're there and part of a creation, and you get to have your input with the band. They write the songs and stuff, but sometimes, it'd be cool as if we put this guitar part there or something, and they go, oh, let's try that. Oh, it works. So you collaborate and you create this cool thing. And it's some of the first times I heard a song that we had worked on the radio, man, what a thrill that is. Turn on the radio, I was like, oh wow, there's that song we were working on last week. So there's some really great moments. You meet a lot of great people. Most people I've met in this industry are just amazing people. Very positive, very really nice people. So that's been fun too, and meeting people all around the world. And you're not just stuck in your own little city, you're working all over the place. So that's pretty cool too.
I mean, for sure. And I mean, you talked about the inspiration that you found from other people that you've worked around, and being around that environment and being around those friendly people. And so the next question I had for you was, um, in terms of your role, and there's other producers and mixers and engineers who are behind the scenes of working on music and stuff. Were
Mhm.
there any producers that you've admired or look up to at this point?
There's a ton of them. Just off the top of my head, Bob Clearmountain was a great, well, still is a great engineer, producer. I loved how he made his records sound. A guy named Hugh Padgham was awesome, great guy. Um, Jimmy Page, was in awe of him and his production on all the Led Zeppelin stuff. And, I got to work with him on a record, so that was pretty thrilling. Another big influence in my life and who I look up to a lot was Bob Rock. So he's another Vancouver started out producer. So there's been many, many people in my life that have really helped me out and I looked up to and learned off of.
I mean, absolutely. I mean, there's obviously a lot of people who play a big role in terms of making everyone succeed, and also helping everyone grow at the same time, and learn their way through it.
Yeah.
Um, and so, I mean, you talked about songs that, like, you kind of like get shocked, and you listen to it on the radio and you're like, wow, this is the things that I've worked on so far. And then it kind of becomes like, it's surprising at the time that you listen to it on the radio for the first time, and then it becomes something that's non-surprising because it's like you've worked on it for so long that it doesn't really become anything new. And so in terms of songs, there's one song that really stood out to me, and that you've worked on, and that's Kanon's "Waving Flag," Young Artist for Haiti.
All
um,
right on.
and yeah, I mean, Kanon is from Toronto. I mean,
Yeah.
he was, his story of that song became a huge hit because of the World Cup. With a big event like that, you're expecting to have a big audience and people who
Yeah.
listen to it every day. Um, so can you talk to me about, like, how that came to be, and sort of how was it experience working with Kanon and those other artists, and also how did the song come together, all together?
Well, that particular song, that was there was a big team of us doing that, and it was led by the great Bob Ezrin, amazing guy, amazing records. Another guy I really look up to, and another local producer here called Garth Richardson. So his dad was Jack Richardson, from the Guess Who and all those days. So they had kind of put it together and wanted me to be part of it. So when they came to Vancouver to record the song, they said, "Oh, we got to get Mike to come in and record it." So that was the team. The three of us were the team that recorded it. But Bob had put it all together. Bob Esmond had put it all together. We got all the different guest singers and all that come in. They filmed the whole thing. So that was a pretty full day of just recording vocals. All the music had been pre-recorded, but it was just recording the vocals and all that. And it was a full crazy busy day. And looking back on it, I couldn't imagine doing that during this pandemic, because the whole studio was just packed with people the whole time. It was quite exciting to be a part of. And Kanan is what an amazing musician, amazing voice, and a super, super nice guy. So I really enjoyed working for him, and it was really nice to see someone like that get the kudos that he earned. So that was really rewarding, that one.
I mean, certainly. I mean, and in terms of working with Kanon, and in terms of that song, what was kind of the difficult task of kind of like arranging that? And I know that Bob Ezrin and Garth Richardson were sort of the main guys behind that song, and really helped put it together. But, like, in terms of your perspective on it, what sort of was the difficult task of putting that song together, and making it sound what it is today?
Well, again, it's just the timetable of recording so many guest artists, and they'd come in, and some singers need a half hour, an hour to sing their part, and some can do it in 5 minutes. So you never know till you get going, and we just always had to keep things moving on, but, get their best performance as well. And, wanted them happy with their performance. So that was a bit of a take. And then I remember also, we weren't sure which order and who was going to sing what part. So sometimes they'd sing most of the song. And then later on, we'd have to say, okay, well, let's, put so-and-so in here and let's put the next one there. Oh, that doesn't flow together. So let's put them over here. So that was a bit of a challenge, finding out how to kind of arrange the different vocalists throughout the song and everybody getting a good moment in the song as well.
Mm-hmm. And when I was trying to find questions to ask you about different songs and different artists, it was sort of a challenge because I was like, what do I ask a producer? Because it's hard because like you're always trying to make a good impression for other people and trying to find the right questions without
Right.
offending anybody. um
Yep.
and so this is the question I wanted to ask you because I found this one interesting. And you just talked about arranging songs and arranging artists in different positions. So how do you approach the sensitive task of discussing changes and rearrangements with artists and trying to find that good chemistry within both artists or bands?
Yeah, that is a tough one. And like back in my day when I started working at the studio, there wasn't any kind of recording studio or recording school or course or anything you could take. It was all school of hard knocks. So, you just learned as you go and off of good people. So one of the main things I've found, and I think some of these recording schools should be teaching, is a psychology course, because it's all about, you got to be a good psychologist to work with all these different personalities and get everybody comfortable and working together, because you want everything happy and up in the studio, because that makes the artist relax and they're able to give their best performance. And these guys walk in, they've written a song, and the song is basically their child, their baby. So for you to go, oh, that's great, but can we change that? Can we put a different arm on there, and can we change the hair color, and can we, is very like intimate to them, and they're allowing you to change their child. So there's got to be a lot of trust there. There's ways of asking somebody to redo something without saying, oh, that sounded horrible, do it again. It's like, oh man, that was so close. Let's try and do another one. Let's see if we can beat that. Or, there's ways of just, you don't want to bruise egos. And, like I said, most of the people I've worked with have been great. And we sort of have this saying, when you come into a studio, leave your ego at the door, and if you can do that and do everything without ego, then you're always open to, okay, let's try it. If it sounds better, great. If it doesn't sound very good, oh well, we'll try something else. So it really creates a good good environment for creating.
Mm-hmm, for sure. And I mean, when it comes to recording songs and when you get pitched a song by an artist
Mhm.
to produce, mix, and engineer it,
Mhm.
what is the first thing you listen for when listening to a new recording? um, and then what is the one thing that every song must have for it to be a solid song that could be like played on the radio?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Well, for me, when an artist comes to me with a bunch of songs, uh, I'd like to work on the songs that I get attracted to. Like, oh, I like that guitar riff in that song, or I love that melody, or the chorus is really, you have to see something really good that speaks to me. Now, it might not speak to anybody else, but it speaks to me. So that's what attracts me to on that song. Say, okay, let's do that song and that song and that song. That other song I don't really get, if it doesn't do anything for me. So sometimes that song won't get done. Sometimes they still do it and it turns out, good. But music's a very personal thing. So what I would pick as, oh, this will be the first single, might not be what you would pick to be the first single, because you'll have a different taste or a different take on things. So once you've got the album all done, say you've done 10 to 12 songs, then a bunch of you, some songs are pretty obviously is the ones, oh, that's going to go on the radio. That's just sounds like, a radio song. And then some you gotta, like, oh, gee, it's a tie between these two. So, usually between the band's management, and the record label, and, I'll have some input as well. We'll kind of go through and sort of pick the top 3 or 4 songs and say, oh, that's the songs that will get and pushed to get on the radio, so it's quite a bit of a process to get the songs on the radio. And then, sometimes the fans will buy the record, and none of those ones that were on the radio are the fan favorites, like like the ones that didn't get on the radio. So it's a really funny thing. A lot of the people in labels are sometimes better at feeling what the audience is going to like. And, that's what we're trying to do, is give the audience what they're going to want, so.
I mean, absolutely. I mean, you're right on every point there, and I mean, it's a hard thing because, artists and bands are gonna pitch one thing to you and say that this is how I would like it,
Yep.
but again, like, you're not gonna get everything that you like at this point. I mean, the industry is
Yeah.
a hard thing, and it's a hard expectation to have, because it's like, you want to please the artist, and you want to make sure that they're getting what they deserve, and what they would like to hear on it. But then again, it's like, what's best for them? I mean, it's a hard thing to really balance that, and trying to find different ways to make sure that you're incorporating what they want, but also
Yeah.
doing something that elevates the music, and tries to make them different and stand out from the other people.
Yeah.
And so how does that really, I mean, in terms of authenticity, let me just put it that way. How important is that in music, and putting into songs and all these different things in the music industry?
Well, I think it's very important, and especially for the bands, because say a band comes in and has a really hugely successful record, then you come back into the studio and to do another record. Well, they don't want to kind of do the same record that they've already done, like just change a few lyrics and all that and put out the same record. Now, a lot of the fans would love that. They go, oh, why did they change their sound? Oh, I don't like it as much as that record or that. Well, bands are, musicians are creative people. They want to move on. They want to do it up. So it's always a very fine line, like say you get a band like AC/DC and they've done, all their records, they haven't changed a thing because it works. But, the songs are different, but their sound's the same. And that's what, one of the reasons they're so big. But, like if they all of a sudden changed up and did one record that sounded more country or something like that, they would lose their fans, but they might gain some other fans. So it's always a balance. So I think most bands want to do what's inside of them and what they want to get out and give their fans, but you got to be very careful that you don't lose your fan base. So you kind of have to give the fans what they want, but I think the trick is to give them new material, but make the fans believe that that's what they want. If you follow me,
I mean, absolutely. And you talked about AC/DC there. And you talked about a lot of the established artists and bands that you've had the pleasure of working with, and mixing and engineering and producing their songs. And Guns N' Roses. I mean, I've seen off, like, your long resume of people who you've worked with. I mean, what sort of the experience was that working, like, on records for Guns N' Roses and AC/DC and Metallica and all those other big bands that are, historic in the music industry, and, legends of kind of music, I would put it
Yeah.
that way.
Yeah. Well, it's for sure it's fun, and where I get my kick is sort of that's the genre that I like, is hard rock. I've worked on many different kind of genres, and I really enjoy being a part of any kind of music, whether it's symphonic or country or R&B or heavy rock. But when it's heavy rock, like, that's just what I like as a fan. So it's a great experience to be sitting there working with a band that you really look up to, and like, oh my God, I can't believe I'm sitting here with Angus Young or something like that. But I've never been kind of starstruck, so it's just like, you go to work and they're the happen to be the guys you're working with, and but it's really fun to be a part of. You get to hear all the songs before anybody else does, and sometimes even for a couple of years before anybody else hears them. So it's kind of neat to be a part of that, for sure.
I mean, yeah, I mean it's an opportunity of a lifetime to be able to, work on people that you've admired for years and
Yeah.
listen to their music. And I know friends of mine who love, AC/DC and Guns N' Roses, more specifically. And
Yeah.
so I'm pretty much wondering that, like, they're probably thinking about, like, questions to ask about, how did that song come about from Guns N' Roses and stuff like that. But in terms of the record that you worked for, on for Guns N' Roses, sort of what was that experience like doing those records, and sort of how was it working with them?
Well, the Guns N' Roses, I've only worked on their live record, so that was mixing. So none of the band was there. I would just get all the various tapes from all the different cities. I believe Mexico was one, and LA was probably, there's just tapes from all different performances, and then we sort of went through it and chose the best song, like, oh, that song was really good on the Mexico night. Oh, that song was really good in Florida. Oh, that song was really, so when we compiled the live mix, the live tape, I'd have to mix each song, but I'd have to mix them so they sounded like they're all done on the same night. It can't be holes, because, you wanted to simulate being at a show. So, with the audience had to go between the songs properly and all that. But, that was just me by myself. I would just put it all together, do the mix, and then I would send it off to Axel. He was the only one that was listening to any of it. All the rest of the band was off doing something else. So he would listen and would approve it, say, oh yeah, I like that, or oh, can you make the vocal louder, or he'd have some input, and we'd fix that, and then we'd move on to the next little section. So that was the Guns N' Roses. I've never sat with them in a studio and recorded them in the studio, just mixed.
I mean, that is pretty cool in itself already. I mean, to be able to work on, something like that, and all of us who are like young aspirational artists, and listen to their music and get inspired by what they do and their cadence in terms of their songs.
Yeah.
And that's, I mean, it's an opportunity of a lifetime, like I've mentioned before.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, when it comes to, you know um, other favorite artists or bands, um, I mean, do you have any other favorites that you would, sort of gravitate towards, or that you currently listen to right now that you were like, wow, that band is like so good, and their music really stands out?
Mhm. That's a tough one for me, because if I'm not in the studio working, I don't listen to music at all. In my car, I've got it all programmed on talk radio. I don't even have a stereo here in the house, because unfortunately for me, when I turn on music, I get my work ears going and I start listening to, oh, I don't like that kick drum sound. Oh, that vocal's out of tune. Oh, that guitar part's weird. So I don't enjoy music like most people do anymore. So that's a tough one. Like, I hear a lot of great music. I hear stuff that I go, oh boy, I'd love to work with them. And I can't think of names off the top of my head. There's a couple bands I've worked with lately. One band called The Wild that I really like. They're kind of local to the Vancouver area here. They're pretty awesome. They're really good band, really good live. And that's what I like in a band. I like a band with good songs, but you go and see them live, and live they're just like, oh my God, these guys are awesome. It's kind of like the AC/DC thing. AC/DC, if you've ever seen them live, that's how you become an AC/DC fan, because they're so awesome live. Um, so yeah, I mean, I just love all music. I don't really have particular anyone in sight. I've been lucky enough. I think I've been doing this almost 40 years, or more than 40 years, that I've worked with pretty much all my childhood heroes, all the bands that I loved as a kid, Deep Purple, and, Van Halen, and AC/DC, and the Cult. And, I've got to work with all those bands. So I don't know what else there would be, like, I've never worked with the Stones. Well, maybe that's a possibility, but looks like they're getting too old now, and Charlie's gone. So, um, I've had a really blessed career at this, and I'm very grateful for my time doing it.
I mean, for sure. I mean, it's a long list of people who are, Hall of Famers, people who
Yeah.
have really made their, established name in the industry and
Mhm.
in the world, more specifically. I mean, I was recently watching a documentary about David Foster,
Yeah.
and how gifted he is. And I'm not sure if you've ever, like, spoke with him or met with him or
Oh
had
yeah.
his
Yeah. Worked with him. He's a good friend. Yeah.
I mean, so can you kind of speak on it, because I've been really wondering and I wanted to speak to somebody who really knew David Foster as a person and really got to work with him and really got to pick his brain about producing music and stuff like that. And so, can you explain what the experience was like with David Foster?
Yeah, I mean, he is just an amazing, gifted musician. He was a keyboard player, and then he managed to get and produce all the Chicago records. I believe that was sort of his first kind of big break. And then he's done all the big giant icons, Barbara Streisand, and all those big icons, because he's really musical. He's really good at working with people, like the psychology of it makes them comfortable. I remember working with him that he is quite the taskmaster, because when we worked together, it was before, computers could fix the pitch and do all that, so they sang a part and something was out of tune. Nope, sing it again. Nope, sing it again. So, he'd make them do it 50, 60, umpteen times, and each time you got to punch in that one little section, so uh sometimes it was grueling, and he had a level of perfection that he always wanted to get out of the artist. But I think that's what made him so good, or makes him so good, is he's got that level of perfection, and he's not gonna settle for anything less. So he just really cracks the whip until he gets it.
I mean, yeah. I mean, even in the documentary, like this is what was hilarious about David Foster. I remember, the scene where Celine Dion and Andre Bocelli, they were talking about the prayer, um,
Yeah.
and what was so funny was how Celine Dion said that David Foster would make her record about like 7 times, and in those 7 times of takes, he's like, that was good, but then do this part again for another 8th time, and then he'll make you do it over and over again until he thinks it's right. Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
and so like you were just speaking on, like how he makes you take multiple takes, and if it needs to go longer into the night and trying to finish this, he will do it. Even
Yeah.
with Barbara Streisand. I mean, I remember when Barbara Streisand, she was talking about her song that she was playing on the piano, and the piano guy wasn't really playing it right, and wasn't really making it sound the way that Barbara Streisand wanted to play it. And
Yeah.
then David Foster came into the room, started playing the piano part, and then Barbara Streisand was like, "Who is that guy?" And sort of like, and then David Foster was like, "That's the way that it should be." Um,
Yeah.
and so like that was kind of like, wow, that's kind of like the wow moment of like how gifted David Foster is in the industry, and sort of how sort of he's
Yeah.
made every Canadian proud to be able to hold so many records and so many awards, and
Yeah.
respected professionalism and reputation in the industry. And so with that being said, we've talked about countless artists and bands that you've worked with, and I mean, for me specifically, I've loved country music,
Mhm.
and so I know you've worked on Roots and Wings for Terry Clark,
Yeah.
um, and I've been listening to her podcast, Country Gold Backstage. She had an interview with Vince Gill, which is one of my heroes, and I
Yeah.
really admire his music. And so could you kind of explain to me how that experience was working on Roots and Wings, and how do you feel now just seeing the success that she's having as a Grand Ole Opry member now?
Oh man, I'm so proud of her. One, being Canadian, like, I got a soft spot for all Canadians, but she again is such a sweetheart person. I was only mixing her stuff, but she would come in I'd finish mixing the song and she'd come in and listen to it and make again any changes if she wanted or whatever. But it was just a pleasure working with her and seeing her success. And she just kind of keeps climbing because, being a country artist in Canada is really tough. There's not, it's not like being in Nashville, and I know she's down in Nashville now, but that's kind of what you got to do to keep it going. There's not a lot of country stations across Canada. Well, there's not many cities across Canada compared to the States, so it's really hard to sustain a country career up here, just because touring is so few and far between and blah, blah, blah. But, she's just managed to always keep it going, and she just keeps kind of climbing a step, and so it just fills you with pride to see what she's doing and accomplished out there. So I'm with you on that. I'm a big fan of hers.
I mean, for sure. I mean, just what a great artist she's become. Being able to perform, on the 5,000th episode, 5,000 special for the Grand Ole Opry. And she got to perform alongside Chris Janson, Darius Rucker, who's been, I mean, a legend for, forever. I mean, being able to work with Hootie and the Blowfish, like it's so like inspiring to see like people like her to do things, especially being the first female Canadian at the Grand Ole Opry. I mean, excluding from Shania Twain. Shania Twain has been a legend in the industry, but like, to see the growth of the music industry and the music scene in Canada now, and how much they're growing. We're seeing it through Drake. We're seeing it through Bieber, Michael Bublé. And so, I mean, for myself, and I know as a young up and coming future artist myself, and for people who are young and want to get into music and want to learn and are interested in the industry, what sort of advices would you give with your, now that you've had the wealth of experience and knowledge that you've had and experience working with different artists and bands? So what kind of advices would you give to young people like me or other people who are young aspiring artists?
Well, mainly I would say is just always work on your craft, work on your playing, whether it's piano, guitar, drums, whatever you're playing, get the best you could be on that, and don't rely on all the computer programs that can fix you and make you sound good. Because I find that a lot of the newer bands today are lazy. They'll come in and play it a couple times, say, oh, you can edit that, right? Oh, you can quantize the drums. Oh, you can tune the vocals. Well, yeah, we can, but those tools in my mind were invented to help with little problems. It's not to create, and too much music's being created in the computer now, and people just do one pass. And then, my view is when you're recording, the more of it you can get live, the better, because that's what captures magic, and magic is what makes that song and the record sound great. You can piece together a perfect sounding song, but there's no magic to it. It just sounds like, oh, well, there's a nice song and everything's in tune and in time, and oh, I like that song. But if you heard it with a performance, then you go, oh, that song's great, that song's amazing. And you can only get in a performance by working on your particular craft. If you need to go get vocal lessons or learn how to breathe so you can sing in tune, just learn how to play that guitar in tune and to your best ability. I mean, you don't have to turn into a Joe Satriani or anything, but the better you can get on your instrument so you can play the whole song live with feeling and maybe only one or two little mistakes, then that's the goal you should be aiming for, instead of going, oh, I'll just play it in pieces and we'll piece it together in the computer. You're not going to get magic that way, I don't think.
I mean, just some great words there. And I think that, like, so many people have so much respect for so many producers, especially you, that, like that really do the work behind the scenes that we don't get to see a lot of. We only get to hear the music, and people don't understand what goes on behind the workings of, the ins and outs of the songs, and the nights that are stressful and trying to get the right takes and stuff like that. But
Yeah.
like, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with me, and for this insightful and historical conversation about the music industry
Oh,
and sort of your
well,
career.
thank you for having me on. And I just wanted to say, any of your listeners or whatever, want to do some work with me or send me their songs or whatever, you can get me at mike@mikefrasermix.com. And I read and answer every email. So, I don't care how little or unknown anybody is. I always like to hear new artists and new music. So cheers.
Well, I mean, thank you so much again for taking the time. I mean, I know you're a very busy man. I know you have a busy schedule, but I mean, I hope you stay safe during these times, and hopefully we'll get some more live music out there, hopefully soon down the road, and try to get past this whole thing. But until
Yeah.
then, take care, and I hope you do have a great rest of your weekend.
Great. Well, thanks again for reaching out. And this has been an absolute pleasure. You had some great questions, and a lot of questions that I don't normally get asked. So that was awesome. So thank you very much. Take care.
That was Canadian record producer, mixer, and music engineer Mike Fraser. Thank you again for listening to this episode. If you're new to my podcast, feel free to check out my show that is available on all podcast streaming platforms. Thank you so much for listening. Stay tuned for Tuesday's episode when Canadian record producer and engineer Garth Richardson joins me next on the Jigme Kelsang Show. Until then, have a great day, and I will chat with you Tuesday.